Sarah Colton's hands trembled as she held the letter, reading it for the third time beneath the harsh Wyoming sun of 1876. It was the final proof she needed: a letter from her husband, Victor, who had disappeared 4 years ago, stating he was never coming back. Her tears made dark spots on the worn paper as she folded it carefully and tucked it into her apron pocket. She had 2 children to feed and no way to explain why their father had abandoned them. "Mama, is everything all right?" 10-year-old Emma stood in the doorway of their modest cabin, her brother Thomas, just 7, peering around her skirts. Sarah quickly wiped her eyes and forced a smile. "Everything's fine, darling. Just a bit of dust in my eyes from the road." She wouldn't burden her children with the truth, not yet. They believed their father was a hero, working on the frontier to provide for them. How could she tell them he had simply chosen to start another life without them? The small town of Oak Ridge had been gossiping for years. 4 years without a word from Victor, and now this letter confirming what everyone had whispered behind her back, that he had abandoned his family. But Sarah had maintained that he was coming back, that he was a good man who wouldn't leave his children. Now she knew the truth, but admitting it meant facing the town's judgment and pity. As the weeks passed, Sarah's situation grew more desperate. The small garden behind their cabin and the few chickens they kept weren't enough. The town store owner, Mr. Peterson, had been extending credit for months, but his patience was wearing thin. "Mrs. Colton, I'm afraid I can't add any more to your account," he said one afternoon as she attempted to purchase flour and sugar. "It's been 4 years since Victor left. A woman alone with 2 children, it's not proper. Perhaps you should consider remarrying or sending the children to live with relatives." Sarah's cheeks burned with humiliation. "My husband will return, Mr. Peterson. He's working on the frontier, saving money for us." Mr. Peterson's face softened with pity. "Sarah, everyone knows that's not true. Victor ran off with that woman from the saloon. He's not coming back." "That's a lie," Sarah insisted, though the letter in her pocket said otherwise. "My husband is a good man. He wouldn't abandon his children." As she left the store empty-handed, Sarah could feel the stares of the townspeople burning into her back. The whispers followed her down the dusty main street. Poor deluded woman. Those poor children. Still lying about that no-good husband. That evening, as Emma and Thomas slept, Sarah sat at her kitchen table by candlelight and made a decision. She couldn't stay in Oak Ridge any longer. With trembling hands, she wrote a letter to her sister in Silverstone, a growing town about 100 miles west, asking if they could stay with her until Sarah found work in a place of their own. 2 weeks later, their meager belongings packed in a single trunk, Sarah and her children boarded the stagecoach bound for Silverstone. As Oak Ridge disappeared behind them, Sarah felt both relief and fear. Starting over wouldn't be easy, but anything was better than facing the daily humiliation of being the abandoned wife who couldn't admit the truth. Silverstone was everything Oak Ridge wasn't: bustling, growing, full of opportunity. Sarah's sister, Mary, and her husband welcomed them warmly, providing a small room in their home above the dry goods store they owned. "You can stay as long as you need," Mary assured her. "Frank needs help in the store, and we could use an extra pair of hands with the children." For the first time in years, Sarah felt hope stirring in her heart. Her children seemed happier too, making friends with their cousins and exploring the exciting new town. But Sarah's past followed her to Silverstone. One afternoon, a woman from Oak Ridge recognized her in the store. "Why, if it isn't Sarah Colton," the woman said loudly enough for other customers to hear. "Still waiting for that husband of yours to return from his important work?" Her voice dripped with sarcasm. Sarah straightened her spine. "My children's father will return when his business is concluded, Mrs. Winters." The woman laughed. "Oh, Sarah, everyone knows Victor ran off with Lily from the saloon. Why keep up this charade? Those poor children deserve to know the truth." That night, Sarah cried herself to sleep, wondering how long she could maintain the lie. She couldn't bear to shatter her children's image of their father, but the truth was becoming harder to hide. The following spring, Sarah had saved enough from working in her sister's store to rent a small cottage on the edge of town. Emma, now 11, helped care for Thomas in their small home while Sarah worked longer hours, taking in laundry and mending to supplement her income from the store. It was during this time that Silverstone began to change. The railroad was coming, bringing with it opportunity and danger. The town swelled with railroad workers, cowboys driving cattle, and opportunists of all kinds. Mary worried about Sarah living alone on the edge of town with 2 children. "It's not safe, Sarah. There are too many rough men passing through. Why not stay with us?" But Sarah valued her independence too much. "We're fine, Mary. The cottage is small, but it's ours. And I've taught Emma to shoot the rifle if needed." One evening, as Sarah walked home from the store, she noticed a group of cowboys had set up camp near the creek that ran behind her cottage. Their cattle grazed in the nearby meadow, and the smell of coffee and beans cooking over campfires filled the air. "Mama, they have horses," Thomas exclaimed the next morning, pointing out the window at the cowboys preparing to move their herd. Sarah studied the men cautiously. Cowboys were known for their rough ways, and she wanted her children nowhere near them. "Stay inside today, both of you. Those men will be moving on soon." But fate had other plans. Later that day, as Sarah hung laundry behind the cottage, she heard a commotion. Thomas had sneaked out and was standing dangerously close to the cattle, watching wide-eyed as the cowboys prepared to move them. "Thomas!" Sarah screamed, dropping her laundry basket and running toward her son. One of the steers had noticed the small boy and was pawing the ground aggressively. Before Sarah could reach him, a tall cowboy on horseback swept down, scooping Thomas up and carrying him safely away from the agitated steer. Sarah's heart pounded as she ran to where the cowboy was setting her son down. "Thomas Colton, how dare you disobey me?" she scolded, pulling him into a fierce hug before checking him for injuries. "I'm sorry, Mama. I just wanted to see the cattle," Thomas replied, his lower lip trembling. Sarah looked up at the cowboy who had saved her son. He sat tall in his saddle, his face partially shadowed by his wide-brimmed hat. Something about him seemed vaguely familiar, but she couldn't place it. "Thank you for saving my son, sir," she said, her voice still shaking. The cowboy tipped his hat. "It was no trouble, madam. Boy's got a curious spirit. Reminds me of someone I used to know." His voice sent a strange chill down Sarah's spine. Deep and rough, yet somehow familiar. "Well, we won't trouble you further," Sarah said curtly, taking Thomas's hand. "Come along, Thomas. We need to have a serious talk about following rules." As they walked away, Sarah could feel the cowboy's eyes on her back. That night, she double-checked that the doors and windows were securely locked. The next morning, Sarah was surprised to find the cattle and cowboys still camped by the creek. "I thought they'd be moving on," she murmured to herself as she prepared breakfast. A knock at the door startled her. Emma answered it before Sarah could stop her. "Good morning, miss," came a deep voice. "Is your mother home?" Sarah hurried to the door, wiping her hands on her apron. The cowboy from yesterday stood on her porch, hat in hand. In the clear morning light, she could see him properly tall and broad-shouldered, with sun-bronzed skin and a neatly trimmed beard. His eyes were a startling blue against his weathered face. "Mrs. Colton, I believe," he said. "Vaughn Mercer, trail boss for the Rockingham Ranch. I wanted to check on the boy, make sure he's no worse for wear after yesterday's excitement." "Thomas is fine, Mr. Mercer. Thank you," Sarah replied stiffly. "Though I'm surprised to see your outfit still here. I thought cattle drives moved continuously." Vaughn smiled, revealing straight white teeth. "Usually, yes, madam. But we're waiting on some business in town before moving the herd north to Montana. Should be here another week or so." Sarah nodded, unsure what to say. Something about this man made her uneasy, not in a threatening way, but in a way that made her feel exposed, as if he could see through the careful facade she'd built. "Well, thank you again for your help yesterday. Thomas has been properly disciplined and won't be wandering near your cattle again." Vaughn's eyes crinkled at the corners. "No harm done, Mrs. Colton. Boys will be boys. I was the same at his age, always getting into trouble, much to my mother's dismay." Before Sarah could respond, Thomas appeared beside her. "Are you really taking those cows all the way to Montana, mister?" "Thomas," Sarah admonished. "Don't be rude." "It's quite all right," Vaughn assured her. "Yes, young man, we're driving these cattle to Montana. It's a long journey, nearly 600 miles. Thomas's eyes widened. "Have you been lots of places?" "My pa has. He's working far away, but he's coming back soon." Sarah's cheeks flushed. "Thomas, Mr. Mercer doesn't need to hear about our family affairs. Go help your sister with the dishes, please." After Thomas reluctantly left, Sarah turned back to find Vaughn studying her with an intensity that made her uncomfortable. "Is there something else I can help you with, Mr. Mercer?" she asked. He seemed to hesitate before speaking. "Actually, Mrs. Colton, I was wondering if you might be in need of any work. One of my cook's helpers took ill in town, and we're short-handed. I'd be willing to pay good wages for someone to help with meals for the next week until we move on." Sarah was taken aback. The offer was tempting. The Cowboys would surely pay better than what she earned at the store. But working in a camp full of men? "I appreciate the offer, Mr. Mercer, but I have responsibilities at my sister's store, and my children. The children could come along," he suggested. "The camp is safe enough during the day, and it would only be from morning till afternoon. We're not far from your home." Sarah considered his offer. The extra money would help tremendously, and it was only for a week. "I'll think about it, Mr. Mercer. I need to discuss it with my sister first." He nodded, placing his hat back on his head. "Of course. I'll stop by tomorrow for your answer." With a tip of his hat, he turned and walked back toward the camp. Mary was surprisingly supportive of the idea when Sarah mentioned it that afternoon at the store. "Cowboy outfits pay well, Sarah, and Frank and I can watch the children if needed, though I imagine they'd love the adventure of visiting a real cattle drive camp." "I don't know, Mary. It seems improper somehow." Mary smiled knowingly. "Is it improper, or are you worried about spending time around that handsome trail boss? Frank mentioned seeing him in town yesterday. Said he was asking questions about newcomers to Silverstone." Sarah's heart skipped a beat. "Questions? About me?" "Not by name, apparently. Just about new folks in town over the past year or so." Frank didn't think much of it. That night, Sarah couldn't sleep. Why would Vaughn Mercer be asking about newcomers? And why did he seem vaguely familiar? The way he looked at her was unsettling, as if he was trying to place her in his memory too. When morning came, Sarah had made her decision. The money was too good to pass up, and she would ensure she was never alone with Mr. Mercer or any of his men. "I'll accept your offer," she told Vaughn when he returned the next day. "But I'll need to bring my children with me." "Of course," he agreed readily. "We'd welcome the help, Mrs. Colton. Can you start tomorrow?" And so began Sarah's week with the cattle drive. Each morning, she would walk with Emma and Thomas to the camp, where she would help the aging cook, Mr. Wilson, prepare meals for 20 hungry cowboys. The work was hard but satisfying, and Mr. Wilson was respectful and grateful for her help. Thomas was in heaven, watching the cowboys work with the cattle and horses. Even Emma seemed to enjoy the change in routine, helping Sarah with the cooking and listening to Mr. Wilson's stories of life on the trail. Vaughn Mercer kept his distance most of the time, busy with the business of managing the herd and his men. But Sarah often caught him watching her, a thoughtful expression on his face that made her nervous. On the third day, as Sarah kneaded dough for biscuits, Vaughn approached the chuck wagon where she worked. "Mrs. Colton, I wonder if I might have a word with you in private?" Sarah's hands stilled in the dough. "I'm rather busy, Mr. Mercer." "Perhaps later. It's important," he insisted quietly. "About your children." Her heart hammered in her chest. "What about my children?" Vaughn glanced around to ensure they weren't overheard. "Not here. When you finish your work today, I'd like to speak with you before you head home." Sarah could barely concentrate on her tasks for the rest of the day, her mind racing with possibilities. What could this cowboy possibly have to say about her children? Had Thomas gotten into trouble again? When evening came, she sent Emma and Thomas ahead to the cottage, promising to follow shortly. "Mr. Wilson needs help with one last thing," she explained. "Go straight home and start your reading. I won't be long." Once the children were out of sight, Sarah approached Vaughn, who stood waiting by a large oak tree away from the main camp. "What is this about, Mr. Mercer?" she demanded, crossing her arms defensively. Vaughn removed his hat, running a hand through his dark hair. He seemed uncharacteristically nervous. "Mrs. Colton, Sarah, I'm not sure how to say this, so I'll just speak plainly. I know who you are, and I know who your husband is." Sarah's blood ran cold. "My husband is away on business, Mr. Mercer. I don't see how that concerns you." Vaughn's blue eyes held her steadily. "Your husband's name is Victor Colton. He left Oak Ridge 4 years ago, telling everyone he was seeking work on the frontier." "How do you know this?" Sarah whispered, her defenses crumbling. "Because I've been tracking him for the past 2 years, Vaughn replied, his voice hardening. "Victor Colton is wanted in 3 territories for theft and fraud. He's been posing as a cattle buyer, taking money from ranchers, and disappearing before delivering any stock. Sarah's legs weakened, and she grabbed the tree trunk for support. No, that can't be true. Victor wouldn't. He couldn't. I'm sorry, Sarah. I work for the Cattlemen's Association as well as running my own outfit. We've been trying to catch Victor for years. When I saw you and your children, I recognized you from a photograph Victor carried. Sarah's mind reeled. A photograph? Victor had kept a picture of them? But he had abandoned them, left them to struggle alone. Why are you telling me this? She managed to ask. Because I need your help to catch him, Vaughn admitted. The last report we had placed him heading for Silverstone. I think he might be coming back for you and the children. Sarah laughed bitterly. After 4 years? No, Mr. Mercer. Victor made it very clear he wanted nothing more to do with us. I received a letter. May I see this letter? Vaughn interrupted. Reluctantly, Sarah reached into her pocket where she still carried the folded paper. Vaughn read it carefully, his expression grim. This is dated just 3 months ago, he noted. Did you find it strange that after 4 years of silence, he suddenly sent a letter explicitly telling you he wasn't coming back? Sarah hadn't considered that. What are you suggesting? I think someone warned him we were closing in. This letter was meant to make you stop expecting him, to ensure you wouldn't mention to anyone that he might be returning. But why would he return? He abandoned us. Vaughn handed the letter back. Did he take anything valuable when he left? Sarah thought back to that terrible time. No, just his clothes and personal items. We never had much of value. Nothing missing? No papers, no family heirlooms. Sarah started to shake her head, then stopped. Wait, there was my grandmother's locket. It was gold with small diamonds. Victor gave it to me on our wedding day, but I rarely wore it. After he left, I noticed it was gone from my jewelry box. I assumed I had misplaced it. Vaughn nodded thoughtfully. May I ask one more question? Did Victor ever mention a map or a claim of some kind? Perhaps something his father left him? Sarah's eyes widened. How did you know about that? Victor's father was a prospector. Before he died, he gave Victor a map showing the location of a gold deposit he'd discovered. Victor always said we'd be rich someday when he found the time to follow up on it. But I thought it was just talk. It wasn't just talk, Vaughn said grimly. That map was real. Victor's father, Jonathan Colton, did discover gold, a substantial deposit in the mountains north of here. He registered the claim legally but died before he could develop it. The claim passed to Victor, but it required working the land within 5 years or it would be forfeit. The 5 years would be up. Sarah calculated quickly. Next month, Vaughn confirmed. I believe Victor has been raising money through his fraudulent schemes to finance a mining operation. But he needs that map and proof that he's Jonathan Colton's son, likely documents that were in your home. Sarah's mind raced. The deed to our home in Oak Ridge, it was in Victor's father's name originally. Victor kept it in a metal box under our bed. After he left, I noticed the box was gone. That would do it, Vaughn nodded. But there's one more thing he needs. Proof that he's been working the claim. The law requires that a claim be actively worked or it's considered abandoned. And how would he prove that after being gone for 4 years? Vaughn's expression turned grim. By claiming that he left you and the children to work the claim all this time. That's why I think he's coming back, Sarah. He needs you to vouch for him. To say he's been dutifully developing this claim while supporting his family. Sarah felt sick. But that's a lie. He abandoned us. We nearly starved because of him. I know, Vaughn said softly. And I'm asking you to help me catch him. When he comes for you, and I believe he will, we need to be ready. Sarah's mind whirled with this new information. Could it be true? Was Victor really a criminal? And was he planning to use her and the children as pawns in his scheme? What exactly are you asking me to do, Mr. Mercer? Continue your normal routine. If Victor contacts you, act as though you're happy to see him. Let him believe you'll help him. Meanwhile, my men and I will be watching. When he makes his move, we'll be ready. Sarah hugged herself tightly. And if I refuse? Vaughn's blue eyes softened. Then I'll respect your decision. But Sarah, Victor has stolen thousands of dollars from hardworking ranchers. Some lost everything because of him. And if he secures that gold claim, he'll disappear again, this time for good. Sarah thought of the years of hardship, of telling her children their father was a good man who would return, of facing the town's judgment and whispers. She thought of Thomas asking just yesterday when his pa would come home. I'll help you, she said finally. But my children must be protected. They can't know what their father really is not yet. Vaughn nodded solemnly. You have my word. Their safety comes first. As Sarah walked home in the gathering dusk, her mind was a tempest of emotions. The man she had defended for years, the father of her children, was a criminal. And now she was conspiring to trap him. What kind of woman did that make her? The next few days passed in a blur of anxiety. Sarah continued working at the cattle camp, grateful for the distraction. Vaughn kept his distance publicly but arranged brief, private moments to update her. No sign of him yet, he would murmur while passing her at the chuck wagon. Or, my men in town are watching for any strangers arriving. On her 5th day working for the cattle drive, Sarah was kneading dough when Thomas came running up to the chuck wagon, his face flushed with excitement. Mama, Mama, there's a man in town asking about us. Uncle Frank says he looks just like me. Sarah's hands froze in the dough. Across the camp, she caught Vaughn's eye. He had heard Thomas's announcement and gave her an almost imperceptible nod. Did Uncle Frank tell this man where to find us? Sarah asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Thomas nodded eagerly. He's coming to dinner tonight. Uncle Frank invited him. Isn't it exciting, Mama? Do you think it could be Pa? Sarah forced a smile. I don't know, sweetheart. We'll have to wait and see. As soon as Thomas ran off to tell Emma, Vaughn approached the chuck wagon. It's happening faster than I expected, he said quietly. My men spotted him arriving on the morning stage. He's been asking around town about you. What do I do? Sarah whispered, fear clutching at her throat. Go home as usual. Act surprised but pleased to see him. I'll have men watching your cottage, and I'll be nearby. Let him talk, find out what he wants, but don't agree to anything tonight. Tell him you need time to think. Sarah nodded, her heart pounding. And my children? They think their father is a hero. Vaughn's expression softened. Let them have tonight, Sarah. Let them believe in their father for one more night. Tomorrow will come soon enough. That evening, Sarah's hands trembled as she prepared a simple stew for dinner. Emma set the table while Thomas kept running to the window, watching for their visitor. Mama, do you really think it's Pa? Emma asked quietly when Thomas wasn't listening. At 11, she had more understanding of their situation than her brother. I don't know, darling, Sarah answered honestly. It's been a long time. If it is Pa, will we go back to Oak Ridge with him? The question caught Sarah off guard. Would you want to? Emma considered this. I like it here. I have friends, and Aunt Mary and Uncle Frank are nice. But Thomas misses Pa something awful. Before Sarah could respond, Thomas's voice rang out. He's coming. I see him. A knock at the door sent Sarah's heart racing. She smoothed her hair, straightened her apron, and took a deep breath before opening the door. Victor Colton stood on her porch, looking much the same as when he'd left 4 years ago. Perhaps a bit more weathered, with silver threading his dark hair at the temples, but still handsome in a rough-hewn way. He wore good clothes better than he could afford as the frontier worker he claimed to be. Sarah, he said, his voice choked with emotion that didn't reach his eyes. It's been too long. Victor, she replied, amazed at how steady her voice sounded. This is unexpected. Pa. Thomas burst past her, throwing himself at Victor, who caught him with a laugh that sounded hollow to Sarah's ears. Thomas, look how you've grown. Victor set the boy down and looked past him to where Emma stood hesitantly. And Emma, you're becoming a young lady. Hello, Father, Emma said formally, not moving to embrace him. Victor's smile faltered slightly before he turned back to Sarah. May I come in? I have so much to tell you all. Sarah stepped aside, allowing him to enter the modest cottage. As he passed, he pressed a quick kiss to her cheek that made her skin crawl. Dinner was a strange affair. Thomas peppered Victor with questions about his adventures, which Victor answered with elaborate tales of danger and hardship working in frontier mining camps. Is that where you're working now, Pa? In a mining camp? Thomas asked between mouthfuls of stew. Victor glanced at Sarah before answering. That's right, son. In fact, that's partly why I'm here. I've struck it rich, finally. The claim I've been working all these years has paid off. If you struck it rich, why didn't you send for us sooner? Emma asked, her voice carrying a challenge that made Sarah both proud and nervous. Victor's smile didn't waver. Mining is dangerous work, Emma. No place for a family. I wanted to be sure it was safe and secure before bringing you all to join me. And is it safe now? Sarah asked, playing along. Victor reached across the table to take her hand. His touch made her want to recoil, but she forced herself to remain still. It is. But there's some business to attend to first. Legal matters regarding the claim. That's where I need your help, Sarah. My help, she echoed. Just some paperwork. Statements confirming that I've been working the claim these past years. The mining office requires proof of continuous operation. Sarah withdrew her hand on the pretense of serving more stew. But how could I confirm that, Victor? I haven't seen you in 4 years. A flash of annoyance crossed his face before the charming smile returned. It's just a formality, dear. The important thing is securing our future. This claim will make us wealthy beyond imagination. Sarah noticed Emma watching this exchange with a thoughtful expression that seemed too mature for her 11 years. Where is this claim, Pa? Emma asked. Is it far from here? Not far at all, Victor replied. In the mountains north of Silverstone. In fact, I need to return there tomorrow to check on things. I was hoping you might come with me, Sarah. See the operation for yourself. Sarah's pulse quickened. This was happening exactly as Vaughn had predicted. Tomorrow? That's very sudden, Victor. The children have school, and I have responsibilities at Mary's store. The children can stay with Mary for 1 day, Victor insisted. It's important, Sarah. Our future depends on it. Let me think about it, Sarah said, rising to clear the dishes. It's a lot to take in after 4 years of absence. Victor's jaw tightened momentarily before he turned to Thomas with another exaggerated tale of frontier life. Later, after the children were in bed, Victor cornered Sarah in the kitchen. What's wrong, Sarah? I thought you'd be happy to see me. For years I've worked to build a future for this family, and you act like I'm a stranger. Sarah steeled herself against his accusatory tone. You are a stranger, Victor. For years without a word, and suddenly you appear with tales of striking it rich? What am I supposed to think? I wrote when I could, he protested. 1 letter in 4 years. A letter telling me you weren't coming back. Victor's expression changed, becoming calculating. Ah, that letter. I was in a dark place when I wrote it, Sarah. Thought I'd never make the claim pay off. But things changed shortly after. I should have written again, but I wanted to surprise you with good news in person. And now you need me to lie for you to mining officials? Not lie, Victor corrected smoothly. Just confirm that I've been working my claim. It's for the family, Sarah. Think of the children. Sarah turned away, pretending to busy herself with the dishes. I'll think about it overnight, Victor. It's late, and this is all very sudden. Where shall I sleep? He asked, his tone suggesting he expected to share her bed. Mary and Frank have a spare room at their house, Sarah replied firmly. I told them you might need accommodations. Victor's face darkened. I'm your husband, Sarah. A husband who's been gone for 4 years, she countered. Things can't simply return to how they were, Victor. We need time. After a tense silence, Victor nodded. Very well. I'll give you time. But I need your answer about tomorrow by morning. The mining inspector won't wait. After he left, Sarah sank into a chair, trembling with the effort of maintaining her composure. Outside the window, she caught a glimpse of movement. Vaughn, keeping watch as promised. She opened the back door quietly and stepped into the yard. Vaughn emerged from the shadows, his expression concerned. Are you all right? He asked softly. Sarah nodded. He wants me to go with him to the claim tomorrow. To vouch for him to the mining inspector. This is good, Vaughn said. It gives us the opportunity we need. If you go with him, my men and I will follow at a distance. When he presents his false documents, we'll have him. And if he suspects something, Victor can be dangerous when cornered. Vaughn's hand moved to the gun at his hip. I won't let anything happen to you, Sarah. You have my word. The sincerity in his voice was comforting in a way Sarah hadn't experienced in years. This man, practically a stranger, had shown more concern for her welfare in a week than Victor had in their entire marriage. There's something I don't understand, Sarah said suddenly. If Victor abandoned us 4 years ago, why did he keep a photograph of us? You said that's how you recognized me. Vaughn hesitated. It wasn't a family portrait, Sarah. It was just of you, holding Thomas as a baby. He's shown it to women in saloons, claiming you died in childbirth and he's raising his son alone. It earns him sympathy and loans he never repays. The revelation was like a physical blow. He's been using us even in his absence, she whispered. Using our memory to commit his crimes. I'm sorry, Vaughn said gently. You deserved better than that. The next morning, Sarah arranged for Emma and Thomas to stay with Mary after school. She didn't tell them she was going with their father, only that she had errands to run. Victor arrived early, impatient to be on their way. He had rented a buggy for the journey, explaining that the mining camp was several hours into the mountains. "You won't regret this, Sarah," he assured her as they set out. "Once the claim is secured legally, we'll build a proper house in Silverstone. The children will have everything they need." Sarah said little, watching the landscape change as they climbed into the mountains. Occasionally, she caught glimpses of riders following at a distance and knew Vaughn was keeping his promise. The mining camp turned out to be little more than a crude cabin in a small excavation into the mountainside. There were no workers, no equipment beyond basic tools. "Where are your men?" Sarah asked as Victor helped her down from the buggy. "Given them the day off," Victor replied smoothly. "Wanted privacy for this meeting." Inside the cabin was a man in a suit, looking impatient. "Mr. Colton, you're late. I have other claims to inspect today." "Apologies, Mr. Reed. May I present my wife, Sarah? She's here to confirm my continuous operation of the claim." The inspector turned to Sarah with a polite nod. "Mrs. Colton, your husband tells me he's been actively developing this claim for the past 4 years. Is that correct?" Sarah felt Victor's eyes boring into her. "My husband has been away from home for 4 years," she said carefully. "He told me he was working a mining claim." The inspector frowned. "I need specific confirmation, Mrs. Colton. Has your husband been working this particular claim continuously since taking ownership?" Before Sarah could answer, the cabin door opened. Vaughn Mercer stood in the doorway, flanked by 2 other men. "She can't confirm that, Inspector, because it's not true," Vaughn stated firmly. "Victor Colton abandoned this claim 4 years ago. He's only returned now to fraudulently secure ownership before the 5-year deadline expires." Victor's face contorted with rage. "Who the hell are you?" "Sarah, who is this man?" "Vaughn Mercer, Cattlemen's Association," Vaughn replied, stepping fully into the cabin. "Victor Colton, you're wanted in 3 territories for fraud and theft. I have a warrant for your arrest." Victor's hand moved to his waistband, but Vaughn was faster, drawing his revolver and pointing it steadily. "Don't make this worse, Colton." Victor's eyes darted to Sarah, realization dawning. "You set me up. My own wife." "You abandoned your wife and children 4 years ago," Vaughn corrected. "Left them to struggle while you swindled honest ranchers. You're in no position to claim betrayal." The mining inspector looked bewildered. "What is happening here?" "This claim has been abandoned, sir," Vaughn explained. "Mr. Colton is attempting to defraud the mining office by falsely claiming continuous operation." Victor lunged suddenly, not for a weapon but for Sarah, grabbing her arm and yanking her against him. "Nobody move. I'm walking out of here with my wife, or things will get unpleasant." Sarah could feel Victor's desperation in his grip, painful on her arm. Vaughn's expression hardened, his gun still trained on Victor. "Let her go, Colton. There's nowhere to run." "There's always somewhere to run," Victor snarled. "Sarah's coming with me as insurance. Once I'm clear, I'll let her go." "No, you won't," Sarah said clearly, finding a strength she didn't know she possessed. "You'll use me until I'm no longer useful, just as you've done with everyone in your life." With a sudden movement, she stomped hard on Victor's foot and twisted from his grasp. As he reached for her again, Vaughn stepped forward and struck him with the butt of his revolver. Victor crumpled to the floor, unconscious. The mining inspector had backed against the wall during the confrontation. "I assume this means the claim is indeed abandoned?" he asked weakly. "It is," Vaughn confirmed, holstering his weapon as his men bound Victor's hands. "You can mark it accordingly in your records." Outside the cabin, as Vaughn's men loaded the still unconscious Victor into a wagon, Sarah stood looking at the mountainside that might have provided for her family had Victor been a different kind of man. "Are you all right?" Vaughn asked, coming to stand beside her. "I don't know what I am," Sarah admitted. "Relieved, I suppose, but also terrified of what comes next. How do I tell my children their father is a criminal?" "With honesty and love," Vaughn said simply. "They're strong, like their mother." Sarah turned to look at him. "Thank you, Mr. Mercer, for everything." "Vaughn, please," he corrected with a gentle smile. "And there's no need for thanks. I was just doing my job." "Was it just your job that made you watch over my cottage at night? That made you follow us into these mountains knowing Victor might be armed and dangerous?" Vaughn's blue eyes held hers. "No," he admitted quietly. "That was something else entirely. The journey back to Silverstone was somber. Victor had regained consciousness but remained sullenly silent in the wagon under guard. Sarah rode in the buggy with Vaughn, her mind on the difficult conversation awaiting her at home. "What will happen to him?" she asked as the town came into view. "He'll stand trial for his crimes," Vaughn replied. "With the evidence we have, he'll likely serve many years in prison. And the children and I? That's for you to decide. You're free now, Sarah. Free to build whatever life you choose." When they reached town, Vaughn's men took Victor to the sheriff's office while he escorted Sarah to Mary's store. The children would be finishing school soon, and Sarah needed to prepare herself for the hardest conversation of her life. Mary was shocked when Sarah explained the day's events. "Victor a criminal? I always knew he was no good. But this? I need to tell the children," Sarah said, her voice breaking. "How do I tell them their father is going to prison?" "With love," Mary replied, echoing Vaughn's words. "And remember, they have you. You've always been their strength, Sarah." When Emma and Thomas arrived from school, Sarah took them to a private room at the back of the store. Sitting them down, she began the difficult task of explaining their father's true nature, carefully adjusting her words to their ages and understanding. Thomas's face crumpled in confusion and hurt. "But Pa said he was working for us. He said he was coming back for good." "He lied, sweetheart," Sarah said gently, holding her son close. "Your father has told many lies. It's not your fault, and it doesn't mean you can't love the good parts of him. But he's done wrong things and has to face the consequences." Emma, ever perceptive, asked, "Is that why people in Oak Ridge said those things about you, Mama? Why they called you a liar when you defended Pa?" Sarah nodded, tears welling in her eyes. "I believed in him too, Emma. I wanted so badly for him to be the man I thought I married." After the initial shock and tears, the children seemed to process the news with surprising resilience. Thomas had questions about jail and whether they would ever see their father again. Emma, mature beyond her years, asked practical questions about their future. "Will we stay in Silverstone now? In our cottage?" "Yes," Sarah assured them. "This is our home now. We'll be all right." Later that evening, after the children were asleep in Mary's spare room, Vaughn came to the store to check on them. "How did they take it?" he asked, concern evident in his voice. "Better than I expected," Sarah replied. "Children are remarkably adaptable. It will take time, but they'll heal." "And you? How are you healing, Sarah?" The question touched something deep within her. "I've been healing for 4 years, I suppose. Ever since Victor left. Today just made it official." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment before Vaughn spoke again. "I'll be moving the herd out tomorrow. We've delayed long enough, and the buyers in Montana are expecting us." Sarah felt an unexpected pang of disappointment. "Of course, you have your business to attend to." "I do," he agreed. "But I find myself reluctant to leave Silverstone." His blue eyes held her steadily. "Or more specifically, to leave you and your children." Sarah's heart quickened. "Mr. Mercer, Vaughn, we barely know each other." "That's true," he acknowledged. "But I'd like to change that, if you're willing. I'll be back this way in 2 months after delivering the herd. Perhaps then we could become better acquainted." Sarah studied him in the lamplight, his honest face, the kindness in his eyes, the quiet strength he projected. This man had protected her, respected her, and shown genuine care for her children. He was everything Victor was not. "I think I'd like that," she said softly. The next morning, Sarah and the children went to see the cattle drive off. The cowboys tipped their hats respectfully as they rode past, and Mr. Wilson, the cook, promised to save his best recipes for when Sarah joined them again. Vaughn rode over on his tall bay horse, looking every inch the capable trail boss. "All set for Montana," he said, smiling down at them. "Will you bring us presents from Montana, Mr. Mercer?" Thomas asked boldly. "Thomas," Sarah admonished, but Vaughn laughed. "I surely will, young man. If your mother approves." "Safe travels, Mr. Mercer," Emma said formally, though Sarah noticed her daughter was studying Vaughn with thoughtful approval. As the dust from the cattle herd settled, Sarah watched Vaughn's figure grow smaller in the distance. 2 months seemed both too long and not long enough to prepare her heart for whatever might develop between them. The following weeks brought many changes to Sarah's life. Victor's crimes became public knowledge, and rather than facing scorn, Sarah found herself receiving sympathy and support from the townspeople. Several women confided that they, too, had been deceived by husbands or fathers. The cottage felt lighter somehow. as if a shadow had been lifted. Thomas still had moments of sadness about his father, but he was young enough to adapt quickly to their new reality. Emma, always perceptive, seemed to blossom once the burden of pretense was removed. "You don't look sad anymore, Mama," she observed one evening as they sat on the porch swing. "Don't I?" Sarah asked, surprised. Emma shook her head. "Not like before. You used to look sad even when you were smiling." From the mouths of children, Sarah thought. Had she been so transparent in her unhappiness? "I'm at peace now," she told her daughter. "No more secrets, no more pretending." Emma leaned against her mother's shoulder. "Is Mr. Mercer coming back to see us?" The question caught Sarah off guard. "He said he might visit when he returns from Montana." "Why do you ask?" "Because he looks at you the way Pa never did. Like you're something special." Sarah felt her cheeks warm. "Emma Colton, you are too young to be noticing such things." Emma simply smiled and changed the subject, but her words lingered in Sarah's mind long after. As autumn painted the mountains in brilliant colors, Sarah received a letter from Vaughn. His handwriting was bold and clear, much like the man himself. "Dear Sarah," it began. "The cattle drive reached Montana safely, though not without adventure. I find myself thinking of Silverstone often, or more truthfully, of you and your children. Thomas asked for a present from Montana, and I've not forgotten. I've enclosed a small token for each of you, with hopes that they bring smiles to your faces as thoughts of you have brightened my long days on the trail. I expect to return by the first snowfall. Until then, I remain faithfully yours, Vaughn Mercer." These small tokens were thoughtfully chosen. A beautifully illustrated book of Western tales for Thomas, a delicate silver bracelet for Emma, and for Sarah, a pressed wildflower within a small frame, a Montana columbine. According to the enclosed note, known for its resilience in harsh conditions. Sarah's fingers traced the dried petals behind the glass. Resilience in harsh conditions, was that how Vaughn saw her? The thought warmed her more than she cared to admit. The first snow fell in early November, dusting Silverstone with white. Sarah was helping Mary in the store when the bell above the door jingled. She looked up to see Vaughn Mercer stamping snow from his boots, his broad shoulders filling the doorframe. "Mr. Mercer," Mary exclaimed. "What perfect timing. We were just wondering when you might return." Vaughn's eyes found Sarah's immediately, his smile warming his weathered features. "I promised to return with the first snow." Sarah felt a flutter in her chest that had nothing to do with the cold. "You're a man of your word, Mr. Mercer." "Vaughn, please," he reminded her. "Mr. Mercer was my father." Mary, ever perceptive, made herself scarce. "I've just remembered some inventory I need to check in the storeroom. Sarah, why don't you help Mr. Vaughn with whatever he needs?" When they were alone, Vaughn stepped closer. "You look well, Sarah." "Happy. I am well," she confirmed. "Your letters have been a bright spot these past weeks. And your replies have been the same for me." His blue eyes studied her face. "I've thought about what you said before I left, that we barely know each other. I'd like to change that, if you're willing." "I am," Sarah said softly. "Though we'll need to proceed carefully. My children have been through enough upheaval." "Of course," Vaughn agreed readily. "I'd like to get to know them better too. They're part of who you are." Sarah appreciated his understanding. "They'll be excited to see you. Thomas has been carrying that book everywhere, and Emma wears her bracelet for special occasions. And you? Did you like your gift?" Sarah smiled. "The columbine is beautiful. It sits on my bedside table where I can see it each morning." Vaughn looked pleased. "I'm glad." Though it pales in comparison to the woman who inspired the gift. His directness made Sarah blush. It had been so long since anyone had paid her a genuine compliment. "Will you be staying in Silverstone long?" she asked. "Through the winter, at least," he replied. "I've taken rooms at the hotel, and I have business with several local ranchers. The Rockingham is expanding, and I'm looking to buy breeding stock." "That sounds promising for lengthy visits," Sarah observed with a smile. "I was hoping you and the children might join me for dinner tonight," Vaughn suggested. "To celebrate my return." Sarah hesitated only briefly. "We'd be delighted." That evening marked the beginning of Vaughn's courtship of Sarah, though neither named it as such at first. He called at the cottage regularly, sometimes bringing small gifts for the children, other times simply offering his company and conversation. Thomas took to him immediately, captivated by Vaughn's stories of life on the trail and his patient instruction in the art of rope tricks. Emma was more reserved initially, watching Vaughn with careful eyes as if assessing his worthiness to enter their lives. "Do you like Mr. Mercer, Mama?" she asked one night as Sarah tucked her into bed. "I do," Sarah answered honestly. "He's a good man." "Better than Pa?" The question gave Sarah pause. "Different from your father," she said carefully. "Every person has their own qualities, Emma. Mr. Mercer is honest and kind. He respects others." Emma considered this. "I like that he makes you laugh. You never laughed with Pa." "Not really." The observation struck Sarah deeply. Had her unhappiness with Victor been so obvious even to a young child? As winter deepened, Vaughn became a fixture in their lives. He helped repair the cottage roof before the heavy snows came, taught Thomas to whittle, and engaged Emma in discussions about books that impressed Sarah with his knowledge and patience. One evening in January, as they sat by the fire after the children had gone to bed, Vaughn broached a subject that had been unspoken between them. "There's talk in town," he said carefully. "About us." Sarah nodded. "I've heard it. People wonder about the nature of our relationship. Does it bother you? The gossip? After what I've endured in Oak Ridge?" "A little friendly speculation is nothing," Sarah replied with a smile. "But I do wonder myself sometimes. What exactly is the nature of our relationship, Vaughn?" He set his coffee cup aside and took her hand. "I care for you, Sarah, deeply, and for your children. These past months have been the happiest I can remember." "For me as well," she admitted softly. "I know it's soon," Vaughn continued. "Victor has only been gone a few months, and you're still legally married to him, though he'll be in prison for years. But I want you to know my intentions are honorable. When the time is right, if you'll have me, I'd like to make a life with you and the children." Sarah's heart swelled with emotion. "Vaughn, you don't need to answer now," he interrupted gently. "I just wanted you to know where I stand. I'm a patient man, Sarah. I can wait until you're ready." Sarah squeezed his hand. "Thank you for understanding. This isn't just about me. Emma and Thomas have to be considered in any decision I make." "Of course," Vaughn agreed. "They come first, always." As winter gave way to spring, Sarah found herself falling deeper in love with Vaughn Mercer. He was everything Victor was not: honest, dependable, genuinely caring. He treated her with respect and her children with affection that never seemed forced or calculated. In April, a letter arrived from the territorial prison where Victor was serving his sentence. He was requesting a divorce, having found religion and wishing to free Sarah from the bonds of their failed union. The letter rang false to Sarah. Victor had never been religious, but she suspected he had other motives. Perhaps a female prison reformer had caught his eye, or he hoped to appear reformed for an early release. Regardless of his motives, the letter offered Sarah an unexpected opportunity. She consulted with a lawyer in Silverstone who confirmed that with Victor's cooperation, a divorce could be obtained relatively quickly. "It's as if a door has opened," she told Vaughn as they walked along the creek behind her cottage. The spring runoff made the water high and fast, mirroring the rush of possibilities Sarah felt. "Does that change things for you?" Vaughn asked carefully. "For us." Sarah stopped walking and turned to face him. "It removes an obstacle, certainly. But my concerns about the children remain. They've only just adjusted to the truth about their father. Introducing you in a new role so quickly might confuse them." Vaughn nodded thoughtfully. "What if they were the ones to decide the timing?" "What do you mean?" "Let's ask them how they feel. They're wise beyond their years, Sarah. Especially Emma. They might surprise you with their understanding." That evening, after dinner, Sarah gathered her children in the small parlor. Vaughn sat nearby, respectfully allowing her to lead the conversation. "Emma, Thomas, I want to talk to you about something important," Sarah began. "You know that Mr. Mercer has become a good friend to our family." Thomas nodded enthusiastically. "He's teaching me to ride next week. He said I could try his horse." "Yes, he is," Sarah smiled. "And I've come to care for him very much. He cares for us too." Emma, perceptive as always, straightened. "Are you going to marry him, Mama?" The directness of the question startled a laugh from Sarah. "Well, that's what I wanted to discuss with you both. How would you feel if, someday, Mr. Mercer became a more permanent part of our family?" Thomas's brow furrowed. "Like a new pa?" "Not to replace your father," Vaughn interjected gently. "But yes, something like that. I care very deeply for your mother, and for both of you." "What about our real pa?" Thomas asked, his young face troubled. "Won't he be mad?" Sarah took her son's hand. "Your father is in prison, Thomas. He's going to be there for many years. And he's asked for a divorce that means he and I wouldn't be married anymore. Because he did bad things? Thomas pressed. Partly that, yes. But also because people sometimes grow apart. Your father and I haven't been truly married in the way that matters for many years. Emma, who had been quietly observing, spoke up. I think Mr. Mercer would be a good husband for you, Mama. He makes you happy. And he's never mean or scary like Pa sometimes was. Sarah's heart clenched at this revelation. She hadn't realized Emma had noticed Victor's darker moods. Thomas looked between his mother and Vaughn. Would we still live in our cottage? That would be up to your mother, Vaughn replied. I own land outside of town with a good house on it. But we could live wherever makes you all happiest. Could I still have my own room? Thomas asked practically. Vaughn laughed. Absolutely. And a horse of your own when you're ready. This sealed the deal for Thomas, who beamed. Then I think it's a good idea. Sarah looked at her children with wonder. Their resilience and wisdom never ceased to amaze her. Well, she said, turning to Vaughn with a smile. It seems my children have given their approval. I believe that removes my last reservation. Vaughn's face lit with joy. Does that mean what I think it means, Sarah Colton? It means yes, she replied softly. Yes to a future together, once the divorce is final. The divorce proceedings took 3 months to complete, during which time Vaughn courted Sarah properly, with flowers and dinners and rides in the countryside. He also spent time with Emma and Thomas, building relationships based on genuine affection rather than obligation. By late July, Sarah was legally free from her marriage to Victor. On a warm evening, with the mountains glowing gold in the sunset, Vaughn took her to his property outside town, a lovely piece of land with a spacious house and a view of the distant peaks. It's beautiful, Sarah breathed as they stood on the porch. You've kept this place a secret. I wanted it to be a surprise, Vaughn explained. I built this house 2 years ago, always hoping to fill it with a family someday. It felt too big for just one man. As they walked through the rooms, Sarah could envision her children here, Thomas racing through the yard, Emma reading in the window seat that overlooked the mountains. In the garden behind the house, Vaughn had prepared a small table with dinner and candles. As the stars began to appear above them, he knelt before her and took her hand. Sarah Colton, these past months have been the happiest of my life. I never expected to find you a woman of such strength, grace, and love. I want nothing more than to spend the rest of my days proving myself worthy of your heart. He produced a ring from his pocket, a simple gold band with a small diamond that caught the candlelight. Will you marry me? Sarah's eyes filled with tears as she looked at this man who had changed her life in so many ways. Yes, Vaughn Mercer, I will marry you. They were married in September, with the aspen trees turning gold on the mountainsides. Emma served as Sarah's maid of honor, while Thomas proudly stood as Vaughn's best man. Mary and Frank hosted the celebration at their home, and it seemed all of Silverstone turned out to wish them well. They called her a liar for defending her children, Mary remarked to Frank as they watched Sarah and Vaughn share their first dance as husband and wife. Until a cowboy said their mind too. Frank followed her gaze to where Vaughn was now dancing with Emma, the girl laughing as he twirled her carefully. Nearby, Thomas was showing off his rope tricks to admiring friends. He's good for them, Frank agreed. All of them. Yes, Mary smiled. Sarah deserves this happiness after everything she's endured. Later that night, after the celebration had ended and the children were asleep in their new rooms, Sarah stood with Vaughn on the porch of their home, looking up at the star-filled sky. Happy? He asked, his arm around her waist. More than I ever thought possible, she replied honestly. You've given us so much, Vaughn. You've given me more, he countered. A family, purpose, love. Sarah turned in his arms to face him. I used to think my life ended when Victor left. Now I realize it was just beginning. Everything that happened led me here, to you. Then I'm grateful for every step of that journey, Vaughn said, drawing her close. Even the painful ones. As he kissed her beneath the vast Wyoming sky, Sarah knew with absolute certainty that this was where she belonged, not as Victor Colton's abandoned wife, not as the woman they called a liar, but as Sarah Mercer, loved and cherished by a man who had claimed not just her heart, but her children's as well. In the years that followed, the Mercer family thrived. Vaughn formally adopted Emma and Thomas, with their enthusiastic consent. The ranch prospered under his capable management, and Sarah found fulfillment not only as a wife and mother, but as a respected member of the community, eventually opening a small school for the children of neighboring ranches. When their daughter Victoria was born 2 years after their marriage, their family felt complete. Thomas grew into a fine young man with his stepfather's integrity and work ethic. Emma, with her mother's strength and her own keen intelligence, eventually left for college in Denver, the first woman from Silverstone to pursue higher education. Sometimes, on quiet evenings when the children were asleep, Sarah would sit with Vaughn on their porch and marvel at the journey that had brought them together. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked him once. "Taking on another man's children? Building a life from the ruins of mine?" Vaughn's answer was always the same. "Never. They were always meant to be mine too, Sarah. Just as you were always meant to be my wife. Some things, no matter how unlikely, are simply destined to be." And looking at the life they had built together, Sarah couldn't help but agree.